Hey, Harford County. I'm Emily Adolph of The Soul Lift. You may remember me as a guest on Rich's podcast. Well, I'm back with something special.
And I'm Ona Crow. We're introducing Nourish and Connect, a gathering space designed to bring people together that feels authentic, supportive, and uplifting.
This is about real relationships, shared wisdom, and growth.
Our gatherings nourish with mindful experiences and reflective activities to leave you inspired.
And they're designed to connect with intentional conversations and welcoming community where you truly belong.
They're the second Wednesday of every month. Join us on April 9th at Doss Beer Hall in Bel Air from 5:30 to 7 p.m. to celebrate spring.
And mark your calendars for May 14th and June 11th. We have amazing experiences planned for summer.
Come as you are and let's grow together.
Hey everyone, it's Rich Bennett. Can you believe it? The show is turning 10 this year. I am so grateful for each and every one of you who've tuned in, shared an episode, or even joined the conversation over the years. You're the reason that this podcast has grown into what it is today. Together, we've shared laughs, tears, and moments that truly matter. So I want to thank you for being part of this journey. Let's make the next 10 years even better.
Coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union Studios, Harford County Living presents Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Slow pitch
It's probably the least sexy part of the organizing. It's okay. No. The truth is.
Welcome to Conversations with Rich Bennett. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with an incredible guest who has turned her passion for travel into a thriving career. Julie Shaffer is a trusted travel advisor specializing in family vacations, stress-free planning, and helping parents create magical memories with their kids. As a mom of 3 young children, Julie knows firsthand the challenges and joys of traveling with little ones, and she's here to share her expert insights on top family destinations, the best vacations to take at different milestones, how to stretch your travel budget, and every parent's question, how to survive traveling with rugrats. I mean, with toddlers. So whether you're planning your next big trip or just dreaming about future adventures, this episode is packed with tips and inspiration, provided that Julie can keep it together because she's just shaking her head, laughing. You never heard that term, rugrats? Come on, it was a show.
It was a show, and I do remember it fondly, yeah.
Chucky. The only one I remember is Chucky.
Right. I couldn't tell you the other ones.
He was the redhead, right?
He was.
Why did the Rugrats name one of the characters after an evil doll?
Who knows? Ask the producers. I don't know.
I just realized that Chucky was the redhead on Rugrats, and Chucky the doll was a redhead.
You're right. Maybe somebody was a big fan.
Wow. That's pretty scary. Okay. All right. So, Julie, before we start getting into the travel bit, I want to hear a little bit about yourself because, of course, as you know, you are your brand.
Yeah.
People like to know who they're dealing with. So how long have you actually been doing this now?
Well, first, I want to say that was such a perfect introduction. It was
so
great to hear all those great things. And that's how I like to describe myself to my clients, my prospective clients, and anyone who's looking to travel with me. I think that's just such a great description.
You just don't tell them that you're a mother of 3 rugrats.
I don't use the term rugrats. I say I have young kids that I travel with all the time. So I've been doing this since 2018. The agency I work with launched June 1st, 2018, and I was one of the initial agents that launched with them, along with about 20 other agents.
Wow.
We've grown to, 150 or so, people come and go throughout the years, but
right.
Yeah, it's been pretty substantial. That was 2018. So we went through the pandemic, and came out on the other side of it with travel, which everyone knows was not a good year or two for travel.
Right.
So business struggled a little then, but it's picked back up tremendously since then. I have
Good.
always loved going to Disney World. It's such a special place for me, for, my family growing up. And I wanted to kind of bring that to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I found that I was always planning trips for all of my friends and not getting paid for it. So kind of figured, why don't I do this and get paid? At the time, I'm also a physical therapist. I have a doctorate in physical therapy. That was my first job.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
my first career. And I knew that when I started having my kids, I wanted to go part-time with my physical therapy job. And I figured,
So you're still doing that?
I'm not anymore, not since I had my second. My hours were just crazy and I wanted to be home with the kids. One day
wow.
I'll go back, but not right now.
Okay.
But an opportunity came up to join this agency when they were launching back in 2018. I had just found out I was pregnant, and I kind of thought, what a perfect time to kind of add this in part-time, because I knew it was a passion of mine. And I've just been so fortunate to have this, as I had to step back from my physical therapy career, to have my travel agency career to grow. And it has blossomed and grown so much more than I could have imagined.
Well, you work from home too, don't
I
you?
do work from home, and my husband also works from home full time. So we kind of shift parent all day, every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now you don't have to go to the Center for Physical Therapy all the time.
I don't. Not right now. One day.
Yeah. Now but your husband doesn't work with you.
No, he does not work with me. He's kind of like my production assistant on my podcast, because he knows how to do computers. But yeah, that's the extent of how he works for me. Sometimes I'll rope him in to help me with stuff, but no, he has his own job, completely busy,
Okay.
regular working hours, and we just shift throughout the day.
All right. So the agency that you're with, you started in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
How was that during the pandemic? Because people couldn't go on cruises or anything.
It was brutal. So basically, as a travel advisor, you don't get paid until your clients travel. So you do all that work up front of researching, booking, planning out their trip, setting all the details. And then the pandemic hit and everything gets canceled, which means you don't get paid for any of that work that you did. Some cruise lines and travel partners still gave you your commission, knowing that this wasn't really your fault.
That's good.
Not many. So that was brutal because, you had great sales and then it tanked and you didn't get paid for any of those sales. And then it took some time to kind of like build that back up. But I will say, as the years came on since the pandemic, having a travel advisor has been so instrumental to any of my clients, because things are booking quickly now, like very quickly. And travel has changed a lot since the pandemic. There's a lot that you need to know that you didn't need to know then, or, different companies have changed their policies on things. So having us on their side is helpful.
What are some of the big changes with that?
A lot of them go with like specific destinations. So like a place like Disney World, for example, which is one of my specialties. At least it started out as one of my specialties. They had so many new rules when they reopened. You had to make park pass reservations, which meant you had to plan in advance, like way in advance, which park you were going to go to, which day. They changed their system on how you make dining reservations. They changed their fast pass system. They just were kind of rolling out changes all the time, or what's open, what's not reopened yet. So like very destination specific about what you needed to know. And also people were just very weary with, what is my travel protection going to cover? How is that going to work if I have COVID, and kind of navigating all those kind of things, as well as just what are the cancellation policies? Everyone's so much more aware of cancellation policies. And the biggest thing that a travel advisor can do is, not only do we know all these properties and have, I have direct relationships with my representatives for Viking Cruise Line, for Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, for all these different partners that I work with. So something that I can do is, if you need to make a change, you don't have to sit on hold. That's me that sits on hold. And I typically have a back office line I call. That's not a long wait like you might have when you had to call in. That's kind of one of our biggest perks, is that we do all that background work for you. If you have to cancel, you're not the one waiting on hold for 8 hours during COVID.
Did you say Viking Cruise Lines?
Yeah.
aren't those, that's the one over there in Europe and all, right?
They do a lot of Europe river cruises. Yep. They're also in the US too.
They are?
They do a really great Great Lakes cruise now.
Really?
Yep. I'm actually in the process of planning a river cruise night with my Viking rep. I've had her on, I've done some virtual cruise nights with her. I've had her on my other podcast. Yeah, I just met with her last week. Yeah.
Wait a minute. What do you mean other podcasts? How many different podcasts do you have?
I only have the one, but yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Are there any other river cruise lines that you work with?
Oh, yes. There are so many. I just actually came back from my agency conference, which was at the end of January. And as part of the conference, different travel partners come up and talk and, give their spiel about their product. And then we can actually go and talk to whoever we want to work with and we want to build relationships with. And I would say 75% of the travel partners were river cruise lines.
Wow.
Because there's a lot of them. Everyone knows Viking because Viking markets direct to the consumer. You get it in your mailbox, you call Viking. Now, if you do that, I can still take over your cruise if it's within 30 days of your booking. But all those other ones, they don't market direct to consumer. And there's so many.
I do know of one that markets to veterans a lot.
Oh, which one?
Because they're always in the American Legion magazine. And that's American. American
Cruise Lines?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I didn't know there was such a thing as cruises on like the rivers and all.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I think they do one here by the bay.
Actually, all their ships are manufactured in Salisbury, Maryland.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And they do some Chesapeake Bay cruises for sure. Yep. They were just at my conference, so I was just meeting with them last week too.
All right. One of the places I really want to go and a lot of people haven't heard of, is there and I don't know if there's a cruise up there, the Thousand Islands? You're looking at me too. Like, wait, you do know what the Thousand Islands are, right? Canada?
I know it's Canada. I haven't sent anyone there. I don't know of any cruises off the top of my head that go there, but that doesn't mean that they won't or that you can't custom make a different type of trip.
Right. Okay. Because I don't even know if I've ever seen any. I see them a lot when I'm watching some of these different shows.
Yeah.
And they look so beautiful. It's like,
it would be better as like a custom trip than like a big cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do know there's a cruise that does something up in like towards the Arctic and all. What is that? Like
Antarctica? Arctic? Is that what you mean?
I don't know. Up north?
Yes. Okay. So a couple of different
ones. By the glaciers and all. Not the Titanic.
A couple of different ones. Cruises go like so many places now, right? Because they're equipped for so many different things. The big thing now with cruising is river cruising, but also expedition cruises, which most popular expedition cruises go to Antarctica or the Galapagos Islands.
Oh.
That's like
islands?
The Galapagos.
What is that?
That's like where like the turtles are. That's like where like Darwin went and studied his finches. It's just these beautiful islands.
Really?
So that's like the tropical side of it. And then there's Antarctica, which is obviously not tropical, but these expedition cruises that go there are like, you're stepping foot on that continent, which is very cool.
Oh, that'd be fun.
It's very cool.
So are the Alaskan cruises still a big thing too?
Oh yeah. Alaska's huge still. Alaska's always huge. They fill up so fast. I'm in the process of planning a couple for 2026, and the availability is already tight.
So I guess with you doing the work that you do, you get to go on a lot of these things, don't you?
I wish I could go on more. My schedule as the primary stay-at-home parent limits that. So it just depends on it. And for me, I don't have a ton of river cruise clients because my niche focuses more on families. Now, that doesn't mean I won't in the future. I always have different people reaching out. My parents love to river cruise, so then their parents want a river cruise or their friends want a river cruise, things like that. But my primary marketing target is families, especially families with young kids. And then those families kind of grow with me as they expand their destinations they want to travel to. So, wait, now I forget the original. Oh, do I get to go on a lot of places? So something like a river cruise, I always have the opportunity to go on river cruises at a very great price, but it's not necessarily where I'm going to spend my time because I'm not going to get the best return on my business for that. So for example, but going to Walt Disney World, everyone wants to see me go to Walt Disney World. And
Right.
then I come back with, knowledge that I can dole out right away about new attractions or how they did this or things like that. So going to all inclusives this past year, my family, or in 2024, was like the crazy year of travel for my family. My kids were 5, 3, and 1 in 2024. We went to Disney World twice. We did Beaches, Turks, and Caicos for a week. We did Disneyland in California. We went to Aulani in Hawaii.
What?
Aulani, it's a resort in Hawaii. It's Disney's resort in Hawaii. We did a Disney cruise. I went on a Royal Caribbean cruise. We were everywhere. But those are things that really speak to my niche of clients. So those kind of opportunities I take more advantage of. All inclusive, things like that are really geared towards little kids. So I can come back and say, oh, and I went to Universal last year. And the whole reason to go to Universal, because everyone thinks that's not for kids, was to ride the rides and say, okay, which ones would I even take my kids on? What's appropriate? So I can come back and tell my clients, this isn't going to work for your age, or, something like that.
Right. So how do you actually help families choose the best destination that fits their travel style then?
So we kind of talk about, what are your ages of your kids? What have you done before? What kind of accommodations did you stay at before? And that gives me an idea of, are they someone who really needs that very nice accommodation and that's very important to them? Or is it more just a place to sleep and I just need to get there? That helps me a lot. We talk a lot about their kids' interests. That helps me determine a lot of things and just kind of the vibe they're looking for. It's once I kind of have a conversation, I try to get everyone on the phone in the process of booking, whether it's after I sent a quote, before I sent a quote, to kind of figure out where are we going? Are we thinking, for Disney, are we thinking a deluxe resort? Are we thinking a value level resort? When we look at all inclusives, do you need a nonstop flight? Do you not need a nonstop flight? These are all kind of things that I know to qualify. If you tell me you want a nonstop flight, that cuts out half the Caribbean. You can only go certain places nonstop from BWI or Philly.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So I kind of know how to narrow that stuff down. If someone comes to me and says we want to go to the Caribbean, but we have no idea where, or the other big one that's very much in my niche of clients is, we want to go to Disney World, but and we want to go to the Harry Potter park. And I'm like, that's two different destinations. One is Universal, one is Walt Disney World. So that's something that's commonly confused, and people, they don't know what they don't know. Same with cruising. I know or am familiar with Royal Caribbean has so many different ships. So if you're telling me we want to go on the ship out of Baltimore, but my kids are 5 and 7. I'm like, you are not going to like that ship. It is small. There's not a lot to do. I've toured the ship. It's not great. Why don't we, if you want to stay local, let's go out of Jersey and let's pick this ship over this other ship because of what I know is on that ship for kids.
Okay. So with the family destinations and that's your niche, is there, besides all the ones you've mentioned, are there any places where families want to go that really took you by surprise?
I've had a couple.
You were like, wait a minute, really? You want to take your family there? I mean, the kids?
Yeah. So not super young. And sometimes people will ask to go certain places. And then as we quote it out, it just doesn't they kind of I'll kind of say, I don't think this is a great fit, but that's what they want to do. So we'll go through the proposal process and then they kind of are like, okay, never mind. Let's do this part instead. I have had quite a few people that as they get into teen years, they want to do those big Italy and Switzerland trips or Italy and combining with, France or something like that, another country over in Europe. Those have been kind of surprising because those are big trips. And they're doing them for graduations, which I think is amazing that's what they're exposing their kids to for graduation, or anything like that. That's kind of the big ones that have been somewhat surprising. On the kind of the opposite side, sometimes I have to talk people into a little bit. They'll say, my kids are 2 and 4. What are they? Where would I take them? I'm going to take them to an all inclusive, and I'm like, hold on, I think we really should do Disney World. I know it sounds cliche, but when you go to the all-inclusive, they're not really going to have much to do. You're going to really be parenting the whole time. You go to Disney World, there's a ton for them to do. So it's also opening their eyes to maybe something that they hadn't considered before.
All right. So with the way things keep popping up everywhere, in the future, whether it be this year, next year, 5 years down the road or whatever, where do you see the next big place, or better yet, a place that I think a lot of families are missing out on because they haven't heard of? Because everybody hears about Disney World, Universal Studios, everything you mentioned.
So
but where do you think some places are that people are actually missing?
So it's either they haven't heard of it or they're too nervous and they don't think they can do it.
Okay.
The biggest one I would say is an African safari. Everyone
with
thinks,
kids?
Yeah. Everyone thinks that an African safari is that trip you do when you're like old and retired and have like 3 weeks to go. And it's just not true.
It's the opposite.
Yeah, it is, because kids can, like, the biggest thing to me with kids in travel is they can learn so much. You don't realize how much they're learning when they're traveling, but even just going to the airport, they're exposed to so many things that they are not exposed to in their regular life. And that just like enriches them and teaches them new problem solving skills and just opens their eyes to so much. And they're so much more forgiving of other people in the world, and they're, you know, a little more peaceful. It's just really great for them. So
it's a lot bigger than a regular zoo too.
Yes. And going to Africa, like, there is so much you can do over there. And it scares people to think, number one, taking your kid to an open safari, and number two, traveling so far. Like, they just think that that's not something they can do with their kids. But like my preferred partner that I work with for African safaris, he has little kids. And so he does it all the time. So he knows all the ins and outs of how to do that with little kids and how to gear programs towards little kids and gear itineraries towards little kids. So I think that's something, like, people really miss out on those bigger trips, the African safaris, going over to Europe.
I would have never thought of that.
Yeah, exactly. It is a very big up and coming destination because post COVID, people want to do those big trips that they thought that they wouldn't be able to do, or they couldn't do. They kind of saw those dreams slipping away a little bit, and now they're like, well, heck, let's do it. Like, let's do the big trip. Yeah. People also think budget is a big barrier to African safaris, but it really isn't. It can be done at so many different budgets that it really could work. I mean, you need some time to save a little bit, but it can be done.
I was going to say the ones that are, I would think the ones that are going to cost you an arm and a leg are the hunting expeditions.
Yeah, the hunting ones where you want to be really out, like, on the safaris for the entire time. There's so, like, you can, go over to Cape Town and you have kind of like this coastal type village. As long as, if you build that in with the safari, it really drops the price so much. But, people don't know that. That's the benefit of working with somebody like me who has those connections and can get you on a Zoom call with my partner who runs his own company for building African safaris, who lived in Africa his whole life. Because we have those connections. You're not going to find that on the internet or at Costco.
Give me another one that's going to floor everybody, because that one floored me.
Okay, like a place like Fiji or the Maldives. A lot of people are scared to take their kids there because, again, it's so far. And they think of it as just like a honeymoon destination. Yeah. And it's really not. There are a ton of family-friendly resorts there. It's another one that people think budget is a really big barrier, and it's not. The family-friendly resorts there are incredibly affordable. The thing that gets you is the flights. But the flights are very doable if you have some good travel hacks to manage those.
Wow.
It's fun talking travel, isn't it?
Yeah, now I need grandkids.
Yeah. So you can take them.
I would have never the safari one still blows me away. I would have never thought about that.
As soon as you start talking about safari, you're like, man, I really want to go on one.
Well, when you think about it, I know, I forget some of the places around here that have the so-called safaris, but the kids love them. Or at least there used to be some around here.
And
doesn't Disney World have one?
So they have Animal Kingdom, which is a theme park, and there is they do have a huge savanna, and it's a lot of conservation efforts, but obviously seeing them in the wild is a completely different experience. And I mean, just think of like how much your kids would learn, not only like actual facts. The thing I like to compare it to is, if you grew up looking at National Geographic books or magazines and just seeing those things in real life. My kids love Nat Geo books. They want to read those things every day. It's such a great resource to expose them to things and then say, hey, let's go see it. That would be an awesome family wish list trip.
I got a hard. Well, this probably is not hard for you.
Oh, no.
It's probably easy.
You make me nervous when you say that.
But if you could create the ultimate family travel bucket list, I knew it was going to be easy for you. What destinations or experiences would be on it?
Okay, so I already said the African safari. That's going to be on it. I'm going to say someplace in Europe. And I would start with Italy and Switzerland. Oh, yeah. Italy, because there's so much history there, and every kid loves pizza and pasta, so it's easy for them. And then I also would couple it with
chicken tenders.
Yeah, I'm sure they have those over there, but and I would couple it with Switzerland because that's awesome for kids like teens because of all the adventure activities you can do, whether you go in the summer or the winter. There's so many activities for like 10 and up really to do that. That is an amazing trip to do. I would say, so family wish list. I would say something with a very beautiful beach somewhere, something like Turks and Caicos, Aruba, something a little more chill, not this crazy adventure trip, but something where you really get a lot of great family time.
You're listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. We'll be right back. I've got to share something with you. If you're in Maryland and thinking about real estate, you've got to check out Daniel McGee and the Victory Team. A close friend of mine sold their house with them, and honestly, I was blown away by the smoothness of the process and the level of care they received. And it's not just them. Several others in my circle have had similar experiences. Daniel and his team have this personal touch that's just so rare these days. They actually listen and tailor their services to fit exactly what you need. And with fees way lower than the industry standard, you really feel like you're getting luxury service without that hefty price tag. So whether you're buying or selling, go to victoryteamsells.com and get started with Daniel McGee and his incredible team. Believe me, with them, it's not just a transaction, it's a relationship. Okay. One of the ones on my bucket list, but I don't know how it would be for a family destination. What about Iceland?
Yeah. I think it's great for families. I think a little bit older kids, like I wouldn't take my kids. I would take them when they were closer to like the teenage years, just because of the excursions you'd want to do. Like my little kids cannot go to a hot spring. That's just not going to happen.
I didn't even think about that.
Or any of these like big outdoor adventure things. But that is something that is up and coming. I haven't got a lot of requests for it for this year, but like people looking out to what they want to do in 2027 and 2028, that's coming up on their list. And the reason is because their kids are younger right now. They want to wait a couple more years to delve into Iceland. But it's nice because it's a little bit closer than some destinations. And there's so much to see there. It's not like really anywhere else.
What are some of the places here in the United States that people are missing out on?
The national parks. I think a lot of people miss out on those. Yeah, unfortunately. But, like the Yosemite over, Yellowstone, Yosemite over like Bryce Canyon, Sedona, all those kind of places. I suggest stuff like that a lot when people want to go more domestic. But again, I think they get nervous that there's nothing for their kids to do. Little kids, because you're hiking and stuff like that. So,
but sometimes little kids love that. I know
they do.
My daughter, when she was, her and the other ones loved going camping and hiking.
And so my solution is, if you think your kids are not going to like it, we go with a company like Adventures by Disney, which is owned by Disney, but Mickey Mouse is not coming with you to Yellowstone. It's just the service level of Disney, where you are not thinking about a darn thing while you're on the trip. And the great thing is, because Disney is still a very family-focused company, they will have separate activities for kids to do. You know, the adults will go to a really nice dinner that evening, and on the other side, the kids are watching a Disney movie that has something to do with what they're doing and having a whole campfire thing going on. So, you know, your kids are being taken care of and everything is accessible on the trip to kids.
Right.
So something like that is where you kind of meet in the middle of, we want to go do this adventure, but I've got these kids with me, these little kids.
All right. So with the little kids, taking them on a trip with you and everything, what are some of the biggest misconceptions and myths that people hear, which turns them away from, they're like, oh no, we can't do this because.
So I think two big things. I think one is people think I don't want to spend the money on my kids when they're this little. I think a lot of people say that. And a lot of people say they're not going to remember it. And my biggest response for that is, you will remember it. I kind of, you know, there's a popular saying like in travel for people that say, my kids won't remember it, so we're not going to take them. Okay, do your kids remember if you read them a book? They don't, right? They don't remember that book, but do they remember your voice and the sounds coming out, and that helps them develop their language skills? So same idea. They're not going to remember you taking them to travel, but they will remember being in a new environment and how they had to cope with that. And, you know, those kind of things, being exposed to new experiences, and finding out what they liked or didn't like about those new experiences. So I always kind of throw out the argument of they won't remember it, because they're still going to learn from it. It's still going to shape who they are as a person. And it's also going to shape you as a person. And you're going to remember that, you know, my daughter doesn't remember going to Disney World when she was 1. But I do. I remember seeing her face at the castle. I remember her when she was almost 2, and it was 2020, and we were in Disney World, and no one was there. And she could run around on the forecourt of the castle because it was empty. She's not going to remember that, but I do.
Wow.
And it's great because we have the pictures of it, and they look back. And then when we go back on those trips, they'll say, hey, remember that picture of me here?
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's such like a pet peeve of mine when people say their kids won't remember it. And then the budget of, well, they don't want to spend money on their kids, basically because they're so little, or they want to wait till the kids are older and can do more on the trip. And I just think, you know, this is the season of life you're in. You might as well enjoy it. You're parenting at home or away.
Yeah, live life to the fullest while you can.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, what's the fun in, like, why are you always going to be waiting to go? And it's not easy. It is not easy traveling with kids. Like, it is not easy, but neither is staying home and parenting them either. So.
And sometimes as the kids get older, they don't want to do that stuff.
They don't want to be with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's just.
Really, Dad?
I know, right? I'm not there yet. My kids are literally still clung to my side majority of the day. But I mean, I see how it changes them every time we go to a new destination. They love watching videos, getting ready for the trip, and then coming back. That's all they talk about. And
actually, what are there's got to be some top strategies for saving money.
Okay. Yeah.
Without sacrificing the experience, isn't there?
Oh, for sure. The biggest one is being flexible. So being able to go in the off season. If you want to go to Italy and you pick July, that is the most expensive time to go. So if you can if you can find some flexibility in your schedule, like go in May or go in September, that price is going to drop significantly. So being very flexible, even if that means finding time to take the kids out of school. I know everyone hates hearing that, taking the kids out of school.
What better education than taking them to Italy?
That's what I kind of say. Like, they're going to learn, I'm sorry, but they're going to learn so much more traveling than what they're going to learn sitting in school. And my kids love school, but they also learn so much traveling. So having flexibility, being able to go on an off season, or being able to even just adjust your dates and not doing that typical Saturday to Saturday, maybe flying out on a Monday where flights are a little bit cheaper, something like that.
Wait a minute. You mean, so like when people go to Italy, usually it's just a week?
Oh, no. Like it could definitely be longer. But again, just having flexible days, not having to do flying on the weekend on the very popular days.
Okay.
Yeah, and being flexible with that. The other big one is credit cards. Finding a credit card that gets travel points in some fashion, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's whether you have a preferred airline, so you just get that airline's credit card. That does kind of limit you. Like, if you get a Southwest credit card, they don't fly to Europe and Africa,
Right.
so that's not going to help
Yeah.
you very much. If you get like Chase Sapphire, Chase Reserved, those
Mm-hmm.
ones have phenomenal travel points. If you're someone who uses credit cards, that is an amazing way to go. I have friends who went to the Maldives on their honeymoon and did not pay anything for it because it was all on credit card points. The resort, the flights, everything. So being savvy with those points can pay for your flights, which is
Right.
Currently flights are about half the price of your budget. So.
Wow. Holy cow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And booking early. The earlier you book, the better availability is going to be, the better pricing is going to be. The idea of like, let me book a last minute cruise because it's going to be cheap. It does not exist anymore. Because
So how far in advance should you book?
as soon as you can, as soon as you know you want to go. So like this morning, I was booking a cruise for June of 2026. Tomorrow booking July of 2026. The earliest you can, I've already booked a trip for 2027 for clients. The earlier you can book, the better. That doesn't mean I don't book. That doesn't mean last minute is not an option. You're just not going to have as many options for where you want to go, which might dictate your price.
Do you, and I guess in a way it falls under family destinations, but you have a lot of people that want to do these, what the hell do you call it? They want to get married in another country or whatever.
A destination wedding.
Yes, thank you. That. So do you do that too? Because a lot of times it would be the kids that are going to that as well.
Yep. And there's some resorts that are really great for destination weddings. There are some resorts that are not great for destination weddings.
Right.
So that's our role, is to find the one that we know does a great job with destination weddings and is welcoming. Some places you can bring kids, some places you can't bring kids. Some places have great wedding coordinators and some don't. So that's our role to help you navigate all that. And then also we are behind the scenes navigating your guest list to get there.
Okay, so with the travel agent, I guess you can't do this though, because there aren't agents that are going on the trips of the people, right? There are.
That you can.
Really?
You can. There's a lot of people that, especially if it's a really big wedding or a really big group, they will go with them to make sure everything goes seamlessly. That doesn't mean they're like going to the wedding or hanging out with them. They're just kind of like there is a resource.
Okay.
Now, I have not done that yet, primarily because of my kids. Right now I don't have super flexibility to just up and go. I need to make sure they are also cared for. But I have colleagues who have done that.
Now, is that the case for regular family destinations as well, not just weddings?
Yes. So like if you're doing a group and it's big enough, like a big family reunion, you can tag along, especially if it's a cruise. A lot of times if they're doing a big cruise, the cruise will invite the travel advisor to come as well.
Okay.
Because you're also coordinating things on board, right? You're coordinating any events they're having at the wedding. You're coordinating cocktail parties, things like that. You're kind of being that extra resource for those things.
All right. So being a travel agent, what's the toughest part of it?
Oh, man. So.
Like, wow, Rich, you really floored me. I wasn't expecting that.
There's a lot of tough parts. If you make a mistake, it's on you and you need to rectify that, which sometimes means it comes out of your own pocket. Now, obviously, we do our best to not make any mistakes, but it happens, right? Everyone is human. So that is a struggle to make sure that you're doing everything to your systems and processes. The other piece is I'm an independent contractor for my agency, which means I do everything on my own. I was
wondering about that.
I do all my own leads. I do all my own marketing. So that is a huge chunk of time to do that kind of stuff. Because the only way that my business stays in business is if I create business. So just
Wow.
Just trying to find my own leads is also a lot. It's gone well, and now I have enough client base that I get most of my new business is referrals from current clients. So you just always have to be on top of it and providing the best level of service you can, so that client wants everyone else to experience that same level of service. And I think too, getting clients to trust you, and trust you enough when you say, this is going to be the best fit for you.
So with that, with the marketing part, especially if you being an independent contractor, do the agencies that you work with help with the marketing or advertising and all? They do.
They can. So we talked about Viking a little bit.
Yeah.
If I want to host a Viking cruise night, like a travel social where anyone interested in Viking Cruise Line would come, and then we talk about Viking, and then you would get a promotion if you booked something like that. They come and they help me with the marketing, and they do the presentation, and I'm there as basically the booking travel advisor for anyone who comes. So I've done something like that with Viking Cruise Line. I've done it with Sandals and Beaches before, which are adult-only resorts and family-friendly resorts in the Caribbean, like the top-of-the-line ones, where they will come and they will do a presentation for my clients and their friends and anyone else who wants to come. And then when you book your trip, you get a booking bonus or a promotion, something like that. So they do help with stuff like that. I have a couple events coming up soon. In-person events coming up soon. So I've reached out to various travel partners that I have and said, hey, can you send me some fresh collateral, some new books that people could browse? Because when people can browse and see those pictures, it's so much better than an online image. They'll help me with all those kind of things. All my travel partners are, they want you to sell their product. Yeah. So they're going to work with you any way that they can. They will come and meet with you, come show up at events for you, send you everything you need, be there as a resource.
So how do these people find out about events that you always have coming up?
Like, how do my clients or anyone that's coming?
Anybody? Yeah. Well, let's say I don't, how would I find out? If I don't know you, how would I find out?
Mostly it's social media.
Okay.
Or my current clients, and I encourage them to bring friends.
Now, on social media, it's not your personal page. You got a business page.
I have a business page. Okay. I have a podcast page. I have my personal page. I have my personal Instagram, my business Instagram, my podcast Instagram. Right. So I'm kind of sharing it across all platforms.
Let's do this the easy way. What's the easiest way for people to find you?
My business Facebook or my business Instagram. So my Facebook is Julie with Creating Magic Vacations, or my Instagram is Magical Travel Mom, which is a little bit more fun.
They don't give you your own website?
I do have a website, magicaltravelmom.com.
Now, are your social media
everything's linked.
Links on it? Okay. Mm-hmm. Is the podcast on there?
It is on there.
All right, let's
think.
Julie.
The podcast might just be on the podcast website.
It is. No, it's not. All things travel podcast.
Podcast.com is my podcast website.
All right. So tell us about that. We won't talk about the technical parts.
Yeah, because I don't know them. I show up.
So tell us, you should, the podcast, I show up. No. I take it on the podcast you guys are talking about, it's you and a co-host, right?
Yes. Yep. Me and my friend Ryan, we co-host it. I've been on the podcast for 1.5 years. He's been doing it since 2020. I just am going to throw out there, it's probably drastically improved in the last 1.5 years since I joined. But it's called All Things Travel because the point is to truly talk about all things travel. We kind of rotate through highlighting different destinations. Recently, we've highlighted, just like itineraries that we think are fun that people may not think about. So something like a family-friendly trip to Costa Rica. What could your trip look like? That was a really popular one. Usually our destination-focused ones are the most popular that kind of give people, what do you do when you get to Dublin? What do you do in Hawaii? Things like that. We also do some tip episodes once in a while, things that we kind of talk about, maximizing your travel budget, top family destinations. Right now, because we both initially started our business with a Disney focus because the Disney parks changed so much. We're in the middle of a series of how to do each park. So I tell you how to walk through the park and do everything with kids. And then Ryan pops on and tells you how to do the same thing with adults. So how to start your day at Magic Kingdom and how to end your day at Magic Kingdom. that's something we're doing right now. So we'll also do Disney focused, cruise focused, kind of a little bit of everything.
And how often do you guys drop an episode?
Every week, every Wednesday.
Once a week, every Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is it just you two, or do you guys have guests on sometimes?
It's just us most of the time. We do have guests on. So coming up, so we've had our Viking rep on fairly recently. Coming up, we have our partner at Royal Caribbean coming up. And she's kind of like a big deal at Royal Caribbean. So we're really excited to talk to her. She's going to give us some insight into the new ships on Royal Caribbean, which there's a lot of them. Icon of the Seas, Utopia of the Seas, Star of the Seas, those commercials are all over your TV right now. We have a travel partner that I mentioned earlier focusing on African safaris. We're trying to get him on soon. We will also kind of have some of our colleagues on once in a while. Maybe someone went to a resort that we haven't been to, and we want them to tell us about it and kind of highlight that destination. So we'll do that sometimes too. Or maybe we have a colleague that has a specialization in honeymoons, and they'll come on and talk to us about honeymoon trends.
Actually.
Oh, no.
Can you share a client's story about a trip that turned out to be even more meaningful than you expected?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, tell it right now, you mean?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So
yeah, and you should also have them on the podcast.
Yes. And we have done that a couple. Well, okay. So sometimes we don't always have the client on, but maybe I will interview them separately and then kind of relay that interview, because not everyone is comfortable podcasting. So I have two that I can think of that really leave an impression. One of them is close to me because it's my in-laws, and they had planned a trip in their mind for a very long time that they finally got to take 2 years ago, and it was celebrating their retirement. It was to the Pacific Coast. So they did a trip driving down the coastline of California, starting in Seattle, going all the way down California, and ending at the Hotel del Coronado down in San Diego. And it was like a 3-week trip. And so they did not come on the podcast. I interviewed them about different highlights of the trip, and we did 2 podcasts about it because there was so much to tell.
I bet.
But they just always raved about how amazing it was to finally see all the sites out there, so much that they are going back this year or next year and starting in Seattle and going up into Canada and driving through the Canadian national parks to see even more of the sites out there. But that was such a great one because they were just, it's such a cool thing when people get to celebrate an accomplishment like retirement.
Yeah.
And you get to be a part of planning those things for them. Another big one that comes to mind is I had a big family trip a couple of years ago that did Walt Disney World over the week of Christmas, which is an incredibly crowded time to go.
Really?
But it was, yes, the most crowded week of the year. But it was grandparents taking all of their kids and all of their grandkids for a big family reunion. They all live in different states. They hadn't all been together for a while. And so we planned this whole week out for them. They were there a little bit over a week. Some people were coming and going. So it was a lot of coordinating on my end and coordinating because it was a bigger group, closer to 20-ish people, 15 to 20 people. But the memories that I know that they got to make because of the accommodations they chose, and because of the time that we spent planning, they will never forget those memories of those trips. And I just think that's a very amazing way to spend time together.
Wow. Yeah, I think those, to me, those on the podcast, because people hear those feel-good stories.
They love it.
And they do. They really do. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, and not necessarily just the feel-good stories, but you're giving the advice too. And when people contact you because they heard it on your podcast, wow, it just feels, it feels so good. Yeah. So good. All right. So before I get to my last question, is there anything you would like to add?
I don't think so. We talked about so much, and it's just so much fun for me to talk about travel because there's just so much that people don't know, and I just want to share it with them and tell them that, whatever they think that they can't do, that they can do, and we can make it work. It's not scary.
All right. So, you ready for this?
I hope so.
When the kids are old enough to where they can travel on their own,
Mm-hmm.
where's the one place that you would love to go that you haven't been to yet?
Ooh. That's so hard.
Even if it's another planet, I don't care. But by then you might be able to.
No, thank you. I like to stay on Earth. My husband would love to go out to a planet. I would like to stay on Earth.
All right, wait. Two parts.
Oh gosh.
Okay, so that you would love to go to, and then a romantic giveaway for you, or a romantic getaway, not giveaway, getaway for you and your husband.
Does it have to be when the kids are gone? I can't bring them with me.
No.
So oh gosh, this is so hard because there's so many places. So I know that I said that this was a family-friendly destination, but because the island hopping, I would just prefer not to do it with my family. I would really love to be able to go over to like the French Polynesia and do those little islands over there. That sounds so amazing to me. And it's just so hard for me to think of another one because I just want to bring the kids, as hard as it is. I just want to bring them. But I think like a river cruise without them, because that's not typically geared towards kids. It's typically geared towards adults. There's not kid-friendly activities really on a river cruise. So I think something like a river cruise through, something very cool. The Nile, the Mekong, something like that.
Oh, that would be fun.
It would be really fun.
All
Cruise
right,
past
so
the pyramids.
Where's the place that you want to take the kids to that you haven't been able to yet?
The Galapagos.
The what?
The Galapagos. The Galapagos Islands with all those cool turtles.
That's right. The turtles.
Yeah, I would love to take them there.
You should have just said Turtle Island.
I know. It's basically what it is. I don't know that we'll get there, but I would love to do that with them. I think that would be such an amazing experience.
And where is it at?
It's south of Mexico. And then it's south of Mexico and to the west of like Brazil and Ecuador. It's right on the equator.
Interesting.
So it's not super far. It's just remote.
Huh. I could do that.
You could do that.
Julie, I want to thank you so much. Tell everybody again where to go to book their destination with you.
Yep. So you can go to my website. That's going to be the easiest. And my website is magicaltravelmom.com.
Magicaltravelmom.com. I love that part.
That is a fun part.
Yeah, the mom part.
Yeah.
Thanks, Julie.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something from it as I did. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners and share more incredible stories. Don't forget to connect with us on social media or visit our website at conversationswithrichbennett.com for updates, giveaways, and more. Until next time, take care, be kind, and keep the conversations going.